Life moved on quietly for Amaka and Chike, though shadows of mystery hung in the air. Every day, he still pushed his wheelbarrow through the market, sweating under the sun like every other laborer. But little by little, Amaka began noticing things that did not fit his poor appearance. Sometimes, well-dressed men passed by and greeted him with unusual respect. Sometimes, a trader whispered, "That boy is not ordinary," before quickly going silent. Amaka wondered why, but Chike never explained. He carried himself as if he were hiding something larger than the world around them could see. One afternoon, while Amaka returned from fetching water, she saw a black SUV parked near their small compound. The car was polished, its windows tinted, and it looked completely out of place among the crack houses. 3 men in suits stood outside, waiting. Her heart raced. She wondered if the police had come for someone. But then she saw Chike stepping out of their room, not in his usual ragged shirt, but in a neat white caftan. The men straightened immediately, bowing slightly as they greeted him. "Good afternoon, sir." Amaka froze, her bucket slipping from her head. She stood speechless, hiding behind the corner as she watched. Chike nodded at the men, speaking quietly. Though she could not hear everything, she caught words like investment, meeting, and estate. Her confusion deepened. Why would men in suits discuss such things with a wheelbarrow pusher? When they finally drove off, Chike noticed her staring. "My wife," he said calmly. "I will explain soon." She wanted to ask questions, but the firmness in his eyes told her to wait. Still, her heart burned with curiosity. Who exactly was this man she had been forced to marry? A few weeks later, another strange event unfolded. Amaka accompanied Chike to the market, as usual. But as he carried a heavy load, a middle-aged trader suddenly stopped him. "My son," the man said with a wide smile, "you look so much like your father, the great Chief Abinna. Are you related?" Chike stiffened, his eyes darkening. "Please, not here," he whispered. The trader nodded and stepped back. Amaka's chest tightened. She had never heard that name before. Who was Chief Abinna? She wanted to ask immediately, but she sensed the answer would come in its own time. At home, Amaka's mind could not rest. She replayed the trader's words. The great Chief Abinna. The way he said it, with respect, suggested importance, wealth, and power. Could it be that Chike was connected to someone influential? She remembered his notebook filled with figures and company names, his occasional polished clothes, the men in SUVs. Slowly, the pieces began forming a picture, but she did not want to believe it yet. After all, this was her husband, the man everyone called a poor wheelbarrow pusher. Yet deep down, she knew something extraordinary was waiting to be revealed. The revelation came suddenly. One morning, Chike woke early, dressed neatly, and told Amaka, "Come with me today." She obeyed, though her heart pounded with questions. They boarded a car she had never seen before, sleek, black, and smelling of leather. The driver, in a crisp uniform, greeted Chike with deep respect. "Good morning, sir." Amaka sat frozen, clutching her wrapper tightly. The car rolled smoothly out of their small neighborhood, leaving behind the cracked roads and crowded stalls. As they drove into the city, skyscrapers rose around them, and she felt as though she had stepped into another world. The car stopped in front of a massive glass building with toll gates and security guards. The sign read, Abinna Holdings Estate Headquarters. Amaka's mouth fell open. She had heard the name before. It was one of the biggest real estate companies in Lagos. Men in suits hurried forward as Chike stepped out. "Good morning, sir," they chorused. They bowed slightly, their eyes shining with respect. Amaka felt dizzy. She followed quietly as Chike led her inside. The building gleamed with marble floors, sparkling lights, and wide hallways. Everywhere they walked, people stopped and greeted him like a king. When they entered a grand office, Chike finally turned to her. His eyes were calm but serious. "Amaka," he said, "it is time you knew the truth. My name is not only Chike. I am Chike Abinna, the son of Chief Abinna, founder of this company. I chose to live as a wheelbarrow pusher because I wanted to understand life from the ground. I wanted to feel the struggles of ordinary people before taking over my father's empire. That is why you met me the way you did." His voice was steady, but Amaka's knees trembled as she listened. Her mind raced. She stared at him, unable to speak. Memories of the market, of Evelyn's insults, of her aunt's cruel laughter, all flooded back. They had mocked her for marrying a poor boy. But this poor boy was the heir to a fortune. She wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream all at once. Chaik continued gently, I did not reveal this earlier because I wanted to see who would stand by me, not for wealth, but for love and respect. And you, Amaka, though forced into this marriage, have treated me with kindness and dignity. You endured with me. Tears spilled from Amaka's eyes. She had been forced into this marriage as punishment, but it had turned into her greatest blessing. She remembered her mother's words, the sun will rise after the rain. At that moment, she understood. Her sun had finally risen. Chaik reached for her hands, his voice tender. From today, you are no longer the wife of a wheelbarrow pusher. You are the wife of the future head of Abina Holdings. Amaka broke down, sobbing into his chest. She was overwhelmed, but her heart swelled with gratitude. Destiny had turned her shame into honor. The news spread like wildfire. By evening, the market buzzed with whispers. Did you hear? Chaik the wheelbarrow boy is actually a billionaire's son. No wonder he was always different. Some people laughed nervously, embarrassed for how they had mocked him. Others felt regret, wishing they had treated him better. Traders who once sneered now bowed respectfully whenever Amaka passed. The same people who once called her house girl now called her madam. The world had turned upside down in one day. For Amaka, it was surreal. She had gone to bed as a poor wife and woken up as royalty. But the biggest shock landed in her aunt's house. When Auntie Ngozi and Evelyn heard the news, they could not believe it. Evelyn almost choked on her food. Impossible, she shouted. That dirty wheelbarrow boy? A billionaire? No, it cannot be true. Her mother, trembling, sent neighbors to confirm. When they returned with wide eyes, saying, It is true, we saw the cars, we saw the men, Auntie Ngozi collapsed into a chair. Chinique, what have I done? She cried. Evelyn's pride shattered like glass. The cousin she had mocked was now above her reach forever. Meanwhile, Amaka's life changed overnight. She moved into a mansion with marble floors, chandeliers, and gardens that seemed to stretch forever. She wore gowns she had only seen in magazines. She rode in cars with tinted windows and soft leather seats. Yet, through it all, she remained humble. She still greeted traders at the market, still spoke softly to neighbors, still remembered the pain of her kitchen mat. Chaik admired her humility. This is why I chose to love you, he told her. Wealth has not entered your head. You are still the same Amaka, pure and strong. Though her environment had changed, Amaka never forgot her journey. She often thought of the kitchen corner where she once slept, the insults she once endured, the basket she once carried. Those memories became her strength. They reminded her to value kindness over money, humility over pride. She knew that her story was not just for herself, it was for others who suffered, to show them that life could still turn around. And every time she saw Chaik smile at her with love, she thanked God silently. What her aunt meant for punishment, heaven had turned into her blessing. The mansion was like a dream. Amaka sometimes wandered its long corridors in disbelief, running her hands along the polished walls. The chandeliers sparkled above her like captured stars, and the gardens bloomed with flowers that seemed to smile at her. Yet even in all the splendor, she remained the same Amaka who once scrubbed floors in her aunt's house. She still woke early, still helped the maids arrange things, still greeted the gatekeepers with respect. The staff adored her. They whispered among themselves, She is humble, unlike many rich wives. Madam Amaka has a pure heart. Chaik's love for her grew stronger every day. He bought her beautiful clothes, jewels, and shoes, but he also gave her something greater, opportunity. You will go back to school, he said firmly. You will finish your education, and you will have the life you once dreamed of. Amaka wept with gratitude. She studied harder than ever, determined not to waste the chance. Teachers admired her humility. Classmates admired her strength. She carried herself with quiet dignity, never boasting about her wealth. For her, the books were a symbol of victory, proof that life had not crushed her completely. Meanwhile, Auntie Ngozi's household was falling apart. Business was failing, debts were rising, and customers avoided her stall at the market. Evelyn, who once boasted of rich suitors, found herself alone. Men came, but left when they saw her arrogance. Day by day, their pride turned to bitterness. One evening, Auntie Ngozi groaned, If only we had treated Amaka better. If only we had not mocked that boy. Evelyn refused to admit fault. It is not my fault, she snapped. How were we to know he was rich? But deep down, her heart burned with shame. One Saturday, their pride collapsed further. They swallowed their shame and went to Amaka's mansion. At the gate, the guards looked at them with suspicion. Auntie Ngozi straightened her faded wrapper, saying, "Tell Madame Amaka that her aunt is here." When the guard returned, his face was polite but firm. "Madame says she is busy today." Evelyn's eyes widened. "Busy? She cannot refuse to see us. We are her family." But the guard stood unmoved. Auntie Ngozi's shoulders sagged. They had once thrown Amaka out like rubbish, and now she had closed her golden gate against them. Inside, Amaka sat quietly by the window. She had heard their voices, seen them from a distance. Her heart was not full of hatred, but of wisdom. She whispered to herself, "Some doors must remain closed until people learn their lessons." She remembered every insult, every chore, every slap. Forgiveness was in her heart, but trust was gone. Chaik stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You owe them nothing," he said. She nodded, but her eyes filled with tears. It hurt that her own family had despised her until wealth forced them to crawl. In the city, people admired Amaka's transformation. Magazines wrote about her, calling her the orphan girl who became a queen. Some envied her, but many found inspiration. Women who once mocked her now told their daughters, "Learn from Amaka. Respect people, even if they are poor. You do not know tomorrow." The story spread across Lagos like fire. Amaka became a living lesson, her life a mirror reflecting the power of humility and endurance. She did not chase fame, but fame found her. Wherever she went, people greeted her with awe and respect, whispering her name like a prayer. Evelyn could not bear it. Each time she heard Amaka's name, jealousy twisted her chest. She remembered laughing at her cousin, pointing at Chaik with scorn. Now, she felt trapped in regret. At night, she tossed on her bed, dreaming of the mansion she would never enter. Her pride, once her weapon, had become her prison. She began to grow bitter, snapping at her mother, snapping at neighbors, blaming everyone but herself. Auntie Ngozi wept silently, wishing she had been kinder. She often said, "Had I treated Amaka like my daughter, maybe she would have lifted us too." Amaka, however, used her wealth for good. She remembered the orphans she had once been like. She built a small foundation to help market girls go to school. She gave scholarships, bought uniforms, and provided food. "No child should suffer the way I did," she said softly. Her mansion's gates, though closed to her aunt, were open to the poor. Children filled her gardens, laughing and eating freely. Mothers blessed her with tears in their eyes. Chaik watched proudly, knowing he had chosen wisely. "Your heart," he said to her, "is what makes you richer than any gold." One day, Amaka returned to her parents' graves. She wore a simple gown, without jewelry, without makeup. She knelt on the grass, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, Papa," she whispered, "I suffered, but your words kept me alive. You told me the sun would rise after the rain, and now it has. I am no longer a house girl. I am a wife, a woman of dignity, and I will honor your memory." She laid flowers on the soil and prayed silently. In that moment, she felt peace. The graves no longer represented loss, but triumph. Her story became a warning to many. Parents told their children, "Do not mock the poor. You do not know what tomorrow holds." Market women said, "See how kindness lifted Amaka. See how pride destroyed Evelyn." Her life was not just her own. It became a lesson carved into the streets of Lagos. Auntie Ngozi and Evelyn, though still alive, became symbols of regret. They often watched Amaka from afar, ashamed to face her. People whispered behind their backs, "Those are the ones who despised her. Now look at them." Their pride had turned into public humiliation. Chaik, now fully revealed as heir to Abina Holdings, prepared to take over the company. Amaka stood beside him at ceremonies, dressed in elegance, her head high. Reporters clicked cameras, flashing lights reflecting her journey from servant to queen. Yet she never forgot her wheelbarrow days, her smoke-filled kitchen mat, her buckets of water. Whenever she spoke at events, she said, "My story is proof that humility is wealth, kindness is power, and endurance is strength." Do not despise humble beginnings, for greatness may be hiding there. Her words touched hearts, leaving crowds in silence and admiration. Years passed, and Amaka's life blossomed. She bore children who grew in love, not in arrogance. She taught them to greet the gatekeepers, to share with the poor, to never despise anyone. Her children learned not from riches, but from their mother's scars. They listened wide-eyed as she told them, "Once upon a time, I slept on a kitchen floor. Once upon a time, people called me a servant. But God lifted me." Their eyes shone with awe, their hearts filled with respect. Amaka's legacy was not just wealth, but wisdom planted in the next generation. Evelyn, on the other hand, grew old in bitterness. No rich husband came. Her beauty faded, but her pride remained. She often walked past Amaka's mansion, staring at the gates, her heart burning with envy. She would whisper to herself, "That could have been me." But she knew deep down, it never could. Her arrogance had destroyed her chances. People in the neighborhood shook their heads when they saw her. "Pride goes before a fall," they said. Auntie Ngozi, wrinkled and tired, often wept at night. She realized too late that cruelty had cost her family everything. Amaka's journey taught 4 clear lessons that echoed long after she was gone. First, do not despise humble beginnings. Greatness often hides in plain sight. Second, kindness is a seed that will always bring a harvest, even if it takes time. Third, pride and cruelty always lead to regret and ruin. And fourth, endurance and humility can turn pain into blessings. These lessons lived not only in her mansion but in the lives she touched. Her name became a story mothers told their children, a parable fathers told their sons, a light that refused to fade. Amaka's suffering forced marriage, revelation, transformation, regret and reward. Morals of the story. 1. Don't despise humble beginnings. 2. Kindness brings harvest. 3. Pride leads to regret. 4. Humility turns pain into blessings. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. africanfolktales 247 will love to hear from you again. And please don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss out on our interesting stories.